So
we let everyone listen to this conversation.
The reason she looks happy, Nasa, is because she's thinking of mean things to say to me. I can see the couple of brain cells are fizzing off each other.
But Nasa, do you not agree he's the gift that keeps giving? Because the conversation we had in here in the studio before you went out, like, I mean...
The private conversation, you mean?
The private conversation we had that he said to me, please don't say anything about it. And I said, I just can't not. So here I'm going to tell everyone listening and watching us now what that conversation was.
But you do know, before you say this, you do know what you also said.
What?
Well, go on, say.
I'm going to say what I said.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that I said yet again, I have to delete TikTok.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous how addicted I am to it.
Yeah.
And you said to me, what comes up on it? And I said to you, interiors, Jack Russell dogs, a swinging couple, and Bonnie Blue. For some reason, I can't get her off the fucking thing.
Yeah.
And you said that's because you must have watched it at one stage. And then you said, and this is the bit that we're coming to that I just have to say, even though he asked me not to, is that you have a constant stream of hot mamas.
No, I had it for about 2 months.
Hot mamas.
Well, I must have watched one of them.
What is a hot mama?
Well, tune into TikTok if you want to find out.
Is it from America?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. So I must have watched one of them. Like, mostly my feed is people getting the head beaten off each other around Dublin or, sulky racing.
Yeah.
And then where you get swinging, I get...
No, I didn't get much swinging.
No.
One weird couple who are a part of my feed for some reason. And I told you that Tyson Fury's brother, whose name I can't remember, and the one who claimed that she was with him and wasn't, that she arrived at their house the other day for a little swing.
Well, I describe exactly what the sort of hot mamas...
Do, please.
The genre that was coming out.
And how did you get stuck on it?
It was one of these, like, I look, my friends think I look 29, but I'm actually 49.
Oh.
And they look really...
hot.
According to the genre, yes.
So is it like a...
What?
Is that all it is? That's
all it is. It doesn't get any more exciting.
Does it not? Do they not do anything?
Well, they sort of reveal their age.
Hot mamas.
Hot mamas.
Yeah, it sounds a bit more exciting.
It sounds a bit more,
isn't it?
Like a lot of my life, as it's definitely more boring than it seems.
Well, I would like to get those swingers off it because.
And then you have to focus on watching.
On watching what? I can't.
Watching something, just swipe off them.
And they're actually, what they do is they start it as if it's an interiors thing, and you get drawn in
into the swing.
Because all
of a sudden you were looking at a new cabinet, and all of a sudden you're in
at their front door, and you feel as if you're going into one of these, these lovely interiors.
Yeah.
These sort of soothing things that people bring you in the whole door to show you their lovely house.
And all of a sudden you're ending up in some sort of orgy like scenario.
A weird thing goes on then. I don't like it.
I also get people rescuing animals. I get a lot of people who rescued a lion cub, and I get a lot of them.
Well, I have the Jack Russells constant. So. I mean, every Jack Russell owner, I'd say, is on TikTok. And then I consider, will I put my one on?
Yeah.
And they all do the same thing. They dig, they jump up, and they're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. I wonder what our friends in the prison are watching on TikTok. I wonder what they are watching. Seriously.
Yeah, well.
Because they all have phones.
No, I think there are a bit less phones than there once was. Certainly, there's less stuff on TikTok, but they're certainly there.
Could you have a digital detox in prison?
I suppose you could. I suppose the drones have been in the news in the last week or so, and that certainly is, I think, becoming the primary way stuff is being delivered to prisons now.
Drones.
Well, drones have become a huge factor.
Just straight into the exercise yards.
Well, yeah, and there's new netting going up. But there's also been all sorts of elaborate stories about, having to burn through the nets and bring drones down. And
it's probably maybe not that elaborate really to do that, is it?
Well, I think they have put up new netting, so it is kind of more complex than it was, certainly.
Burn through it.
Yeah. But the drones are a huge factor, and obviously it's very dangerous because anything could be smuggled in terms of weapons, and that does seem to be a big concern.
Yeah. Now, I mean, look. Drugs, by the very nature of it, a lot of people in prison, unfortunately, are drug users. It must be so boring in there. I'm not 100% sure I wouldn't partake myself if I was stuck in that situation, to be honest with you. Some people have obviously drug issues and all the rest of it, but prison is such a sort of boiling pot, isn't it? I mean, it must be a place that you are constantly on your edge, waiting for something to happen, or I think it would be easy to lose your temper for
Yeah, I think
emotions to fray.
Yeah, I think if you consider the people that end up in prison, I mean, you have to say most of them would lack a bit of that impulse control. Who they would be reactive people inevitably, and I think what some of them can find really hard about prison is that you just simply have to do what you're told. So it's this constant flashpoint. There certainly are some people that have a tendency towards violence, and that's why they end up in this constant conflict with prison staff. Very, very difficult job to deal with people who are so fundamentally opposed to being told simple things and then following through.
Now, the reason we're talking about all this, of course, is because convicted murderer Christopher Slator has had a bit of a set to with some prison officers in Mountjoy. And he's appealing this case, actually.
Yeah, he's appealing it. Christopher
He was found guilty of the 2022 murder of... Sorry, he was found guilty in 2022 of the murder of the dissident Republican Michael Barr, shot dead in the Sunset House in 2016 as part of the Kinahan Hutch feud. Might have been the fourth or the fifth murder from memory.
Yeah, it was a very significant shooting, really, in terms of even Irish gangland history, in that it was one of the only times that a known dissident figure like Michael Barr was shot dead by a drugs gang, the Kinahan cartel. Michael Barr had been working in the Sunset House pub. Two guys burst into the pub. They were wearing what was described as Freddy Krueger masks, and he was shot dead. So it was a very, very big deal. Michael Barr was given a dissident funeral. He had been a signed-up member of what was the real IRA. Certainly, it seems that the Kinahans blamed him for some involvement in the Regency, though his family and other investigators have subsequently really rubbished that and said he had absolutely no involvement in the Regency and had been living effectively a quieter life.
What other investigators?
Well, some of the guards did stand up in court and say, did sort of certainly didn't contradict the family in that manner. But he had been an associate of Flat Cap Kevin Murray, and that was why the suspicion landed on him. But the family have done many interviews and said that...
Yeah, they're very adamant that he had nothing to do with the Regency.
Yeah, but certainly at that time, straight after the Regency, suspicion fell on a load of people that were interacting with the Hutches, one way or another, or even knew them or living in the North Inner City. There's now 3 people serving life sentences for his murder. One of them is a guy called David Hunter, who was a known criminal from Merseyside, who was literally flown in to carry out the murder, had no involvement in the Hutch-Kinahan feud, had no known links to anybody.
Who hired him then?
Well, it was always suspected that Bomber Kavanagh at least had some role in that whole operation, or the Burn organised crime gang as a whole. Certainly at that point in the feud, the two wings of the Kinahan cartel were working hand in glove and sharing information and men. Eamon Cumberton was also convicted. Eamon Cumberton was very much part of the Ross Browning, I suppose, wing of the Kinahan cartel. He had been very much known as a dangerous, sort of volatile criminal. He had been sort of, I suppose, associating with people that became known as the new INLA. People like Johnny Keogh, who would also is also serving a life sentence, and Nicky McConnell, both of them for the murders of Garrett Hutch. But Eamon Cumberton had grown up in the North Inner City. He wasn't involved in any paramilitary organisation or anything like that. He was a gun for hire and a very dangerous person. We
spoke to Jerry the Monk Hutch on the show before Christmas about his own sort of near miss in a pub in Lanzarote, where he described that these 2 men arrived and they just looked out of place, and he had a hunch that something was up, and they came into a pub he was in with his wife. He said he hid behind a pole and they walked past, and one of them was had no glasses on. And of course, he was referring to at that stage a man he believed was Eamon Cumberton.
Yeah, and Eamon Cumberton and Christopher Slator have both been named in connection with that attempted murder in Lanzarote. Cumberton and Christopher Slater, they have a very, let's put it, long-term connection as people.
But they were quick to be hired, you know what I mean? So the feud was kind of rumbling along really since Gary Hutch was killed, and before that, when the first attempt was made on Daniel Kinahan in 2014. And it's been rumbling along, and really by the time of New Year's Eve 2015, and these two guys are sent to Lanzarote on the Kinahan payroll.
Yeah.
Certainly Cumberton and Slater is believed to be the second one. They're taking the money, right? They're very quick to take the money for these jobs. And they come up again then in this Michael Barr shooting together. They're operating as a hit team together in that. Cumberton is also suspected of, having certainly looked for other roles. He was looking for a big payday out of.
Yeah, these guys are hitmen for hire. It's as simple as that.
Were they before?
Well, they were certainly.
Feud kind of created them, didn't it? Really, in a way.
Yeah, but they weren't. They didn't have skin in the game in that way. They would have had an association with people like Gary Hutch for a long time. They never would have been in the inner circle. For example, the people that carried out the murder of Eddie Hutch. Certainly some of them would have seen as being emotionally involved in the feud, let's put it that way. But by the time Michael Barr was killed, Eamon Cumberton and Christopher Slater are guys that really can move around the North Inner City without instantly raising alarm bells. Eamon Cumberton definitely was one of a very regular attendee at Ross Browning's gym. He would have, been a fitness fanatic. By all accounts, sort of very volatile and erratic. Christopher Slater, he has a sort of a family connection with Eamon Cumberton, and they obviously took this on as a job, just like David Hunter did as well, even though he denied it, but ultimately he's serving a life sentence as well. So what happened basically was that came in, they shot Michael Barr and they escaped in a getaway car. Now, the getaway car ultimately was abandoned up in Drumcondra. It was set on fire, as these things always are. The reason these things are firebombed effectively is that it burns all the DNA evidence. It burns all fingerprints, so the car was abandoned, masks were taken off, runners, boiler suits, and they were all put in the car, and the car was set on fire. And the guys fled the scene. However, as we've seen happen on other occasions as well, the fire wasn't done properly, effectively. The car didn't explode, which they're always looking for that engine to explode and for everything to be obliterated through the heat. The emergency services managed to put it out. So they were able to get that mask, and they were able to get a runner, and they were able to extract DNA, including Christopher Slater's DNA. And that ultimately was probably the core of the case against him and why he was convicted. There was other evidence really interesting.
He fled the jurisdiction the following day on a flight to Dubai, which was also, cited in court as being highly suspicious. But interestingly, it's the appeal around this conviction centres on that DNA evidence you're talking about there. And, lawyers representing Slater said it shouldn't have been admitted.
Yeah, I mean, they're I suppose, the argument that they're making is that, obviously the runner is found in the car with his DNA and the mask is found with his DNA. But the argument they're making is that DNA could have been transferred in some other way. The runner could have picked up that DNA and therefore shouldn't be admitted or
used
shouldn't
as
be
evidence.
Well, it shouldn't be admitted. Obviously, they flew off to Dubai and then on to Bangkok.
Yeah.
They didn't bring any luggage on with them on the flight. They just jumped on the flight and were gone. They booked that and were gone within a few hours. So that obviously looks suspicious, and it's certainly not normal to go on a trip to Thailand without any even hand luggage, as far as I remember.
The Court of Appeal has reserved judgment on that. But in the meantime, and the reason we're talking about Slater is because of this incident in the prison.
Yeah, I mean, he's serving a life sentence, but he was given an extra 10 months. Though even the judge kind of said it was academic, effectively, because
he's doing the life sentence.
He's doing the life sentence anyway. However, I suppose it could be held against him if he ever does look for parole. But basically, what happened was that he was convicted of throwing cartons of milk at 2 prison officers and punching a third in the face. And I suppose it's a kind of a typical situation where somebody like Slater, and of course Cumberton has also been involved in a number of these disciplinary situations in prison as well. Slater threw the cartons of milk at the officers, and when a third guard came over to try and de-escalate it, is how it's described, Slater struck him across the face with a punch. So it's I suppose it's ultimately one of these minor criminal offences, but I suppose it shows you how difficult it is to deal with these guys. I mean, he ultimately, when he came to court, although he pled guilty at a late stage, he was described by his own counsel as being apologetic in the extreme. But we've seen this with Cumberton as well. These guys really struggle to manage
their emotions,
and particularly when being ordered around, and that is a part of prison.
Yeah.
Now, there's some people go into prison and they seem to be able to get their head down and make the most of it and keep calm and manage themselves well. But there's a lot of those guys are very volatile, and Slater's shown himself to be one of them.
For sure. And no doubt there's plenty more like him, and there's other cases going to come up before the courts in the time ahead. So you wouldn't recommend to be watching Hot Mamas?
Well, I mean, it's if you've had enough of swinging and you just want.
Sorry, you mentioned it. Are you sorry?
I don't know.
Did you come out with that?
I don't know. I'll have to see. I'll have to see if my mother listens to this podcast. Then I might be. She is actually. No, she is actually listening.
Is she?
On a regular basis now.
Okay. Well, he claims, Mrs. Donald, that it's innocent, really, Hot Mamas. It's not. It's just the way he came out with it. It's more exciting than what it was.
Yeah. Well, look, it could be. It's not as exciting as swinging, but
swinging isn't very exciting either. As I said to you, it looks like an interiors thing, and then all of a sudden
I think I have seen that, and they do a little dance.
You find yourself in this sort of untoward situation, and
we're really
using TikTok.
We really are too old for all this.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's no question about that. Right. Until next time.
I don't know why I say these things, but I do.
Neither do I.
Thanks, Nicola, I suppose.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.